Hey there, Cohort 21. Welcome to our first vlog, the Cohort 21 Alumni Spotlight. We want to know, where have these amazing educators who started in seasons 1 through 9, where are they now? How have their action plans evolved? What brought them to Cohort 21 in the first place? And I couldn't be happier to present and introduce Rachel Marks, who is the head of elementary at TMS. She started Cohort 21 in season 6 as a teacher looking to bring joy and find the joy and purpose of learning with her young students. And her rise to head of school was closely tied to this work that she started before Cohort 21, but was able to go a little bit deeper throughout the process. So without further ado, buckle your seatbelts. Here's Rachel Marks.
Thanks, Derek. My name is Rachel Marks. I'm thrilled to be here. I am the head of the elementary at TMS, which is an independent school in Richmond Hill. And I'm thrilled to be able to chat with my cohort buddy, Derek, who continues to be an inspiration to me now, even though we worked closely together over 5 years ago. I will never forget the teachings that you taught me, Derek. It was an awesome experience.
And so when Rachel and I were talking, we went down a whole bunch of different paths, and we were looking at, what first enticed Rachel to get involved with Cohort 21. We were about halfway through where we're at now. We'd just done season 5, and here's what she had to say.
I sort of, it was a lot of talk about this professional development community that was evolving, led by Garth and Justin, and there were, mentors and leaders such as yourself there. But it really was a lot of chatter amongst my colleagues at the time. I was a teacher when I first heard about it. And I thought, how do I connect differently to the independent school system and really augment my own professional growth? And so it just sort of went hand in hand. I did a little bit of research. I started to read some of the blogs that Garth and Justin had written, and I really became inspired to learn a little bit more and see how that might play out for me in my own professional pathway. And we'll talk a little bit about it, but it really worked out in such a way that I couldn't have anticipated. Such a positive outcome, really.
At Cohort 21, this is an action research-based approach that is developed through a design thinking protocol, and sort of honoring the teacher as researcher idea and teacher as designer. And so we ask every participant, as you know, to do an action plan, and we always start with the user. What does the user need? Who is the user? And so Rachel was looking to bring joy to her students. And so let's have a listen about how that went and where her action plan evolved.
So it's funny because at the time I was really interested in people and relationships and the study around happiness. I always wanted to know, what was the key to happiness? And so I was watching TED Talks about human interaction and how humans were feeling fulfilled. And the one TED Talk that struck me was the longest study on human happiness and what they had discovered. They had been studying people over 100 years, and everything was connected to finding meaning, finding joy, and having success in relationships. So it sort of piqued my interest because I thought, how do we take that learning and translate it into a classroom? Because at the time I was teaching grade 4, 5, 6, and I started asking myself, are my students happy? Are they finding joy in what they're doing? So it was from there I thought, how do I sort of benchmark that, follow that, and really investigate that idea of joy in learning, in teaching, in acquiring knowledge? And it just really imploded from that small little seed, that little inkling of, are we happy? Are our students happy? That's how I started.
That's amazing.
That's not where I ended up, but that's where I started.
Yeah, and so walk me through that process. Like, how did what key insights sort of came to mind throughout your journey in that cohort season, and then did it shift at all? Did it evolve as you became cohort alum?
It really, really did evolve. So it really started out with joy, investigating in relationships, bringing in levity into the classroom, having the students participate in initiatives that they were interested in. And it really became I really started to see that intrinsic motivation in my own students that perpetuated my drive. I really was driven to learn more. So I really saw that they found meaning in their work, and that when they found meaning in their work, they were joyful. When they saw others were joyful, they wanted to find ways to inspire other people to become more joyful. So it became sort of an individual pursuit of joy, and then it became a collaborative pursuit of joy, and then it led to a community initiative so they could help others find joy. And the way we really started this process was a simple tool of gratitude journals. As soon as the children's, a lot of connections around joy and gratitude, as soon as the children realized, the students realized what they were grateful for and how much they had at their fingertips in terms of access to education and resources, they started to say, well, what about other people who may not have that? What does that look like? So this small little spark of joy became, how do we make others joyful? So we started to work with youth in our community who were homeless. Just from this small little initiative, I'm feeling joyful. This is what it feels like. How do I make others joyful? We created an initiative with an organization called 360 Kids, and we started to work with them around ways making sure youth were supported in our community. We didn't have the same access to things that our students may have potentially had access to. So that initiative that was an internal school community initiative really became an external community initiative, and that's carried through over the years. Is that sense of just being grateful and how to help others, and really cultivating empathy in leadership and empathy as students become collaborative. It just really sparked and spiraled into something bigger than I could have ever imagined. And for me professionally, it really guided my vision as a teacher, but then inspired me to want to make this bigger and helped me actually step into leadership, believe it or not. The year after cohort, I became the head of elementary, and part of my work was this vision I really wanted for the entire community, because I wanted our kids to be joyful. I wanted them to be intrinsically motivated. I wanted to make sure they cultivated empathy as they became the leaders of the future. And all this just came from that tiny seed of, are my students happy? So it still continues to be incredibly fulfilling. And especially as we go through this, hopefully coming out of this pandemic, are we finding joy? Are we supporting their social emotional growth? Are we supporting each other's wellness, as educators, as leaders? So I could talk about it for hours and hours. It just became bigger than I could ever imagine. And I'm just so grateful because cohort allowed me to take a tiny seed, but then be open to that journey kind of, being sort of, peaks and troughs in that journey, but not being linear, like you said. It just opened up so many doors for not only for myself, for my colleagues, but for all the students at TMS.
Yeah, oh my gosh, like I don't know if you can see it, but the hair on my neck is standing up, right? Like we always want to put students in that seat of authentic learning and agency. And you did that. You inspired them to connect with people in their community, and that's just wow. Like kudos. And if we've got like snappy fingers or jazz hands to celebrate that is truly remarkable.
I'm very grateful that you say that I inspired them, but every day really it is they are inspiring me, because the new learning I acquire with the initiatives they want to take on, because they're finding meaning and they're joyful, but also they just know that they want to do more, not because we're asking them to, it's that they're intrinsically motivated to become, the best version of themselves, which to me is just so inspiring.
Yeah,
absolutely. Every year I'm just really looking at curating the vision, the strategy for elementary a little bit differently, but I never lose that key focus about joy and learning, finding meaning in your work. All of that stemmed from my work at cohort. And honestly, the people I met on my journey that I'm still connected to, it's just, I'm so grateful for that. I mean, we've had Garth and Justin come and do work with our TMS team. Anytime I need something, I need some support around working through inquiry, reaching out to them. They're always giving me digital tools. ways to help students learn better, learn differently. Like those connections are for a lifetime, those relationships. So I have huge gratitude for that. And even other teachers and administrators I met in cohort, completely inspiring. And when I go on my junior school calls, we all remember our experiences. Out anytime, little inside jokes. And so I feel I can go into almost any independent school or pick up the phone and call somebody just for support. And that's all through those cohort connections. That bonding was so awesome.
That is incredible. Wow, listening to Rachel talk about how her action plan evolved really brings into focus That's a Good Idea, a blog written by Seth Godin. And it's really important to honor and then what happens. And to repeat that question 100 times, because every time you repeat that question, it will bring new insights and will allow your action plan to further evolve into areas that you may not have actually realized possible. It's always interesting to ask people what they would recommend. Rachel brings us through a lot of wisdom, and it's really around courage, right? We're so to fight that perfectionism that handcuffs us, that prevents us from taking those first courageous steps towards chasing our great idea. And so thank you, Rachel, for sharing your wisdom.
Just be open to change, be willing to take a risk, and know that that's where the valuable learning is going to be acquired. Know that you may start in one place like I did and end up almost in a completely different place, and that's a really great thing. That acronym that you presented to us around FAIL, first attempt in learning, has to be that mindset when you go in, right? And no, there's no judgment. Like everybody's there just to learn from one another, to explore. And even if your takeaway is you met one great person, check off that box. Like it's just valuable, those connections.
That's incredible. Yeah, great advice. Absolutely. Because I think as educators, we think, that cake has to be baked and nicely decorated and perfect. And it's fighting that perfectionism to find the courage to take risks.
Hard as educators because we are end result oriented also, right? We value the process, but really, we want to skip to that creation piece. And so I think our own learning that we're teaching in the class is key to bring to cohort, right? That embrace the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sage, you heard it here first, people. Sage words from Rachel Marks. In season 10, we presented the Eisenhower Matrix. It allows teachers, business leaders, anyone to prioritize and master their productivity. What we use this tool to help with is to take inventory of all the work we do on a daily basis and to be able to classify it into one of these 4 boxes. It's important for us to do this because we don't want to ever lose sight of the urgent and important work. We shared this framework with Rachel to get her thoughts on this in her role as head of elementary at TMS.
I know with COVID, right? That urgent and important around health and safety protocols, which we never want to be dismissive about, but it's kind of just perpetuated all, or I would say pervaded all of our work because we have to make sure that all our stakeholders are safe and healthy. And those things we don't want to sacrifice. That as we can move to sort of that important but not urgent box, or I think it was not important, but urgent. Who are your people, your key people that you can rely on to do some of that great work, right? I think that's a piece of learning in cohort that I know that all your valuable members will take away. But what does that look like in terms of important, but maybe not urgent? Urgent or not important. And I always think of that in terms of vision and strategy. We have time to evolve those things. You have time with your teams to really collaborate on that work that's so key, and that can be inspiring. And it has to be done thoughtfully, and it has to be done well, and it can't be rushed. But also you can't do it all. And so when you're doing that in cohort, you have these incredible people around you who can share in that work with you. So I think it's important, and I think we all have to do some closet cleaning. And the not urgent and the not important, how do we put that aside? right? How do you get, that idea of decluttering is so important because our minds right now, they're cluttered and
Yeah.
everything seems urgent and important always. And that frontal lobe is just go, go, go at all times. So what does it look like to break that down? And I think that's a collaborative piece. You have to use the people around you. I'm learning that. It's hard for us all because we want to do it all because we want it done well. But you have valuable people around you who can work with you around that.
Rachel, listen, I know that your life as in your current role as the head of the elementary at TMS is super busy. I appreciate reconnecting after all this time and seeing that you're doing amazing things, seeing that your action plan continues to flourish and evolve. And I just thank you. Thank you for taking the time to chat and to reconnect.
Happy to help anybody at any time. They can reach out to me. That would be awesome. And as things open up at school, we can start to visit each other at schools again. That would be, I know that we're getting closer to that, but that would be great. I welcome to have anybody coming in to see the elementary, and happy to chat with any people involved in cohort or anyone you connect with at any time. You know me, Derek. Email, text, phone, whatever it takes.
Thanks for tuning in to the Cohort 21 very first Alumni Spotlight. If you are interested in becoming a guest on Alumni Spotlight, please reach out. You can reach us at Cohort21 on Twitter, and you can find us on Instagram as well. We will include the Eisenhower Matrix as well as Seth Godin's That's a Great Idea blog in the description. We hope you have a great day, and we hope you found the time worthwhile.